On February 24th, 2022, the 6th booster set of Flesh and Blood, Everfest, came into players' hands. It was based on the story of a grand traveling carnival in Aria, which is the northeast region of Wraith. It told the story of strongman competitions, brutish gambling, bar fights, likely as a result of that brutish gambling, merchants peddling wares, showwomanship, and the new Blitz heroes Valda and Icelander. Everfest is what Legend Story Studios, the creators of Flesh and Blood, call a supplemental set. These sets are not made to be drafted, as they are packed with cards to supplement existing heroes and archetypes. Cards like Mask of the Pouncing Lynx for Ninja, T-Bone for Mechanologist, Skull Crushers for Brute, Rain Razors for Ranger, Swarm and Gloomveil for Runeblade. Additionally, these cards intend to create new archetypes like Aether Wildfire for Wizard or the Aura cards for Illusionist. But there was one supplement that was less your daily vitamin B12 and more like a dangerous injection of HGH. Or, better put, the first hero for an Eon to embody the flow, and with it the three primary elements that course through the land of Aria. Is Bravo the chosen one? Before we can talk about the Starvo-shaped elephant in the room though, I want to introduce today's extended analogy. James Harden.
Harden tonight, 3 of 7. Thompson's defense there. Step back, 3, down.
For those of you unaware, James Harden is a professional basketball player for, as of this writing, the NBA team, the Philadelphia 76ers. James Harden is among the most well-known players in the NBA for his lightning-fast first step, dazzling playmaking abilities, incredible three-point shooting, and ingenious passing. He has made history in a number of ways due to the incredible efficiency and extremely high motor. The man has played so many games and was used an astounding usage percentage in his tenure with the Houston Rockets. His career was largely mocked, however. He has never won a championship and has bounced from team to team. He will likely enter the Hall of Fame when his career is over, but he will never be revered as one of the great players in the NBA. Why? Partly because he's never and likely will never win a championship. But mostly, I think, because fans of basketball, both those at home on the couch and those at the studio in the booth, despise the way he plays basketball. They have labeled him a cheater, an abuser of the rules, a ball hog, stat chaser, and every other negative attribution one can ascribe to a player. This isn't without good reason, mind you. James Harden is a genius at abusing the NBA's written rules. So much so that he has a footwork maneuver attributed to him, the step back 3, which is, rules as written, legal. But I mean, look at it. Does that not look like revealing Pulsive Eisenloft? Not only that, but his deft understanding of the rules of basketball and his abuse of these rules have actually led to rules changes. This comes in the form of the rip-through move, in which the offensive player rips their arms through the defending player's arms intentionally while faking a shot. The referees, fans, and players all knew there is no intention to shoot, but, rules as written, it was a foul. The offensive player always benefited from this interaction and got to go to the free throw line for a cheap and easy 3 points. And the meta shift he caused in the NBA got the rule changed, and rip-throughs became banned. He existed in a meta shift that wasn't ready for his brand of basketball. No one predicted the NBA fouls would get so out of hand until Harden. This is because Harden was blatant with it. He would do the same things again and again and again, much to the dismay of his opponents who were desperately trying to stop him, but being punished for being too close and too far away. Is some of this starting to make sense? Harden often won on technicality, and also happened to exist in an era of the NBA where the meta was shifting ever backward, farther and farther behind the three-point line. He wasn't so much the cause of the meta shift, that is much more attributed to Stephen Curry, more on him in another video, but he was a primary beneficiary of this meta shift. We all knew where this was going though. Bravo, star of the show, also known as Starvo, was also printed in the Everfest set, and would fundamentally alter the perception of hero power in the minds of Flesh and Blood players. Bravo, star of the show, is an elemental guardian who has the essences of earth, lightning, and ice. His hero text box reads, "At the start of your turn, you may reveal an earth, an ice, and a lightning card from your hand. If you do, the next attack action card with cost 3 or greater you play this turn gains +2 damage, dominate, and go again." His primary game plan, therefore, was simple. Collect the aforementioned elements in hand, vaporize health points with insanely overrated attacks, then close out the turn with a borderline free weapon attack that made his opponent's turns worse. In order to understand why this is such a brutal turn cycle, we have to unpack the text box a bit. when the going rate for red cards is 0 resource for 3.5 damage. Plus 2 damage is worth effectively half of a card. Dominate is an evasive ability, which only allows the defender to block with 1 card from hand. In Starvo's previous rendition, giving a card this ability costs 2 resources. Finally, Go Again is something normally reserved for low power attacks. In fact, as of this writing, no Guardian cards have natural Go Again. It's not in the genetic identity of Guardian playpieces. This is the trade-off Guardians have for having such high damage attacks mixed with their innate evasion. Given that Starvo only had to collect and then reveal these cards from hand, the Lightning, Earth, and Ice, something which turned out to be a benefit to him rather than a deck building restriction, was seen by players as asinine. Not only that, but Starvo also had the luxury of having the Earth, Ice, and Lightning essences. Rules as written, this means that Starvo could include cards in his deck that no other hero had been able to before. Starvo had another neat trick, a bit like Harden in his rip-throughs, where he ran all 3 of the Pulse cards. I'm talking, of course, of Pulse of Candlehold, Pulse of Eisenloft, and Pulse of Volthaven. What's special about these cards is they were the only 3 cards at the time to be printed with 2 elements, that being Earth Lightning, Ice Earth, and Lightning Ice. They are legendary, so only 1 of each could be added to any given deck, but all it took for a Starvo was to collect 1 in hand and be able to do his big reveal at the start of every turn. Why? Because the same card could be revealed twice for the same effect. So, knowing what we know now, a Starvo turn would actually go something like this. Start of turn, Starvo reveals Pulse of Eisenloft for Ice, then again for Earth, then reveals any Lightning card in the deck for Lightning. Starvo then pitches 7 for Crippling Crush, and caps it off with either pitching Eisenloft for an Icy Hammer hit, or simply holds on to Eisenloft for the next turn, given that the opponent had to discard 2 cards as a result of the dominated 13 damage attack. Do this 5 times, and the game is over, even if the opponent is throwing everything they can to block it. I see a lot of parallels between Starvo and Harden. Let's run them down. Starvo is one of the best heroes ever printed by LSS. Even if a more powerful hero is ever printed, and surely there will be one, Starvo will always echo in the minds of players. He is permanently infamous. Starvo was incredibly consistent. Once he had the big reveal, it spelled disaster for the opponent. Starvo was not the best because of anything players attribute to merit. Players hated his game. He abused the concepts of rules as written. Players looked at his double pulse reveals and thought, those cards weren't made for you. They were made for the elemental heroes of Arya, Oldhim, Lexi, and Briar. They were not clever plays or even lucky game actions, but more like winning on technicality. Take this in contrast to the hero who won the first ever Worlds tournament, Michael Hamilton's Icelander. No one looked at Icelander's dominating performances of late 2022 as abusive or undeserved. He led to many rules changes in the forms of bans and then his inevitable living legend status, but also specifically benefited from a unique meta that wasn't prepared for him. In the words of James White, courtesy of Fluke and Box's interview,
is there a hero overperforming where internally you thought it wouldn't do so well and is doing way better?
Yeah, absolutely, Starvo. But I've explained this a number of times because in the development pipeline that Starvo existed and Plunderon wasn't banned and Briar wasn't errated. So, yeah, he wasn't the best hero ever to have existed in the game internally. And then, yeah, and also Ball Lightning was legal as well. So yeah, just there was quite a big gulf between the development environment and the environment that he existed in the real world, and that led to some pretty, yeah, divergent performance outcomes than we were expected.
I feel like Starvo will probably hold the record for Living Legend, the fastest ever. That'll never happen.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
Now that James Harden is in the waning years of his career, I think NBA fans will look back on his career with a sort of begrudging reverence. He was an incredible player after all. I think too that Flesh and Blood players will eventually look back on the Starvo era with the same begrudging reverence. He was, after all, an incredible hero. Thanks for watching.